Hello, everybody. My name is Alisa Villanueva, and I am a senior at Notre Dame High School. And today we'll be presenting on my passion project, Latinas Contra Cancer, which is focused on helping Latinas with cancer or who are fighting cancer. I specifically focused on Latinas in the Bay Area. So to start off, I would like to just take a moment to want you all to recognize or remember someone or a loved one who you know is fighting cancer or who has battled cancer. I want to take a moment right now to remember their battle and to recognize their strength. Thank you. Now, going into it, I completed my core hours my sophomore year as a volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club in Redwood City. I tutored first and second graders while also being a teacher's assistant. As a member of Redwood City and as a volunteer from a program in Redwood City, I know that Redwood City has a very large Latinx community, and I know this also because a lot of the kids that I worked with are bilingual or knew very little English. So the programs that the Boys and Girls Club offers for them and for their families are very helpful. Moving on, I would say that my passion project most directly connects to NDB Hallmark number 5, which states that we embrace the gift of diversity. Because my project is focused on helping women, specifically Latinas, it very much embraces the gift of diversity, not only from the women aspect of it, but also from the Latinx community aspect of it, because the Latinx community is an underrepresented community. Now, going into the design thinking process, the steps of the design thinking process are emphasize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. The first step was emphasize. I emphasized with the Latinx community of the Bay Area because I worked at the Boys and Girls Club in Redwood City, and I saw how a lot of the families there struggle financially and how a lot of the families and students struggled culturally in terms of language barriers and really identifying themselves within two different cultures, whether that is their Latinx culture or the cultures that we see here in the United States. The next step is define. So the first issue that I saw was language barrier. Much of the Latinx community, especially in Redwood City, knows very to little English. So this is very big because they don't really get easy access to information that people who speak English might get access to in terms of finances or medical help. The second issue that I saw was financial support. So the Latinx community is a minority and they get paid very little in comparison to the sizes of the families that they have. And they need that money to support their families in the basic necessities that they might need. That brings me to my third point, which is family. So, due to the large families that many Latinx families have, parents have to work overtime in order to provide for their children and for their elders, which is why programs like the Boys and Girls Club are very useful for the Latinx community because they allow and they provide programs for their kids and for their families in order to get financial support in terms of meals that they might not be able to afford or even after school care like the program that I worked for in specific. So the next step, ideate. As a young woman and a Latina myself, I have always been drawn to fighting for women's rights, Latinx rights, and helping my community in any and every way that I can. So I figured, why not add all the things that I'm passionate about? And that brought me to my idea of my passion project. At the same time, I wanted it to connect my passion project to something more meaningful. And in that fact, now I just want to cover a little bit of background information on me as to why I decided to do my project. So, my grandma's name is Adela Rodriguez Almeda. My grandmother was diagnosed with cancer in the winter of 2016, and she lived her life dedicated to her faith, family, and her flowers. Her passion have always been flowers, especially orchids or orchids. When she was diagnosed with cancer, chemotherapy caused her to lose hair, so my family from Mexico would bring her beautifully embezzled knit hats with flowers on them. On May 2nd, 2017, my grandmother was called to heaven, leaving behind these beautiful hats that remind me every day of her strong fight against cancer. So I decided I wanted to connect my project in helping Latinas with cancer and who are fighting cancer. I decided to help an organization called Latinas Contra Cancer, which is a Bay Area organization led by women dedicated to helping Latinas with cancer. They provide financial, medical, and emotional support for these women. Now here's a short video that I will be playing.
My involvement with Latinas Contra Cancer is deeply personal. 15 years ago, we lost my grandmother to breast cancer. She put up a fight. And I remember when she lost her hair. I remember when her beautiful appearance became fragile and frail. I remember how self-conscious she felt about losing her hair and what her skin started to look like and what her body started to look like. And I remember, even though I was young, recognizing the isolation that she was encountering, the isolation that she was feeling, knowing that none of us in the family, while we cared for her deeply and we were there every single day, truly knew what she was going through. That's when I first became aware and involved with Latinas Contra Cancer, because my grandmother was in the very first support group that our founder, Isabel Durant, ever held. And that support group was more than just the meetings. It gave her back that dignity and the power and the self-respect to go through something so ugly and so gripping that she was able to deal with that through the support group, in her language, in her culture, with other women who understood what she was going through.
So now going into the idea process of this, first, I wanted to help out Hispanic women in the Bay Area who are fighting cancer or who have dealt with cancer. 2, I wanted to spread awareness of the struggles of Latinas with cancer. And 3, I wanted to find a way of giving money to the organization in a more meaningful way. So the solution I came up with is connecting my grandmother with the LCC. The first thing that I thought of was breast cancer and how breast cancer is represented by a pink ribbon. I wanted the roses that reminded me of my grandmother's fight to kind of represent the same idea as the pink ribbons. And so I decided to make knit rose keychains so that Latinas fighting cancer would be represented by these knit roses. I also wanted to do something around Mother's Day in order to really emphasize that women's part of this whole project. So going into the prototype and testing, so the flowers that I had made, originally, I wanted to really get the NDB community involved in it, but my mentor and I, my adult mentor and I, decided that it wasn't really rational to make 100+ knit roses within a lunch period. It wasn't really possible to make that many flowers, so I decided to reach out to my family. And my tias from Mexico, my aunts from Mexico, decided to help me out because they were the ones who originally sent those knit flower hats to my grandma in the first place. And without hesitation, my aunts told me that they could make me all the flowers that I needed, and they even provided me and donated materials such as yarn, beads, and keychains that I needed to really put the flowers together. I was blessed to receive over 100 flowers for them, so thank you, tias. So the first, going into the advertising aspect of it, I made my Instagram page for Latinas Contra Cancer, and I also wanted to host an event and the NDB to still get the community involved. So I decided to make a flower making event where we would put together the flowers sometime in February or March, but because of COVID-19, I wasn't able to host this event. So I had to kind of figure something else out, which brings me into the selling aspect of prototype and testing. So my original plan for the flowers was to sell them at my church and through my Instagram page in the month of March. But again, because of COVID-19, I wasn't able to sell my flowers face-to-face. So I decided to set up an online order form, which I will be linking down below. As you can see, this is a page on the right where people will be able to order flowers, and I hope to get them out as soon as I can, especially with this whole pandemic going on. And I also want to host an event in May, like a Zoom meeting where I'll be presenting more information on the issues that Latinas with cancer face in order to really tie in the whole women aspect of it and to really get in that Mother's Day aspect that I wanted to get in. So going into my adult supervisor was Ann Gaviria, who is a Spanish teacher at Notre Dame. She was my own Spanish teacher, and she's a Latina herself who lives in the Bay Area. She has many connections to many Latinx organizations around the Bay. So she has been very helpful in this whole process. Going into the timeline, in November, I decided to start brainstorming and meeting with my adult mentor on the products that I would be selling. In December, I contacted my family from Mexico and got their approval on helping me out. In January, I finalized with my family in Mexico on how I would be receiving the flowers from Mexico and the other resources that I needed. In February, I planned to have that student involvement activity, but I couldn't do it. And then in March was when I was supposed to sell the flowers, but again, I couldn't do that. And then in April was my main goal, my main deadline to get the money to the LCC, but I'll be probably getting back that money in May. And in May, the original planning of the Mother's Day presentation will now be a Zoom call. And finally, how can you help? How can you get involved? The three main tips that I have in order to reach out are learn about the communities and organizations that surround your own community, volunteer, and finally donate. Volunteering is the way that I have gotten involved in the organizations around my community, such as the Boys and Girls Club, which I linked to the right. And also, you could reach out to the Latinas Contra Cancer organization or find your own organizations that might be that might stand for similar issues. And like I said, I will also be linking down below the order form for the roses if you would like to purchase one and you can make a donation or purchase one, and any and all help will be helpful. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and I really hope you enjoy.